Purple Heart Homes presents Putting the Pieces Back Together, a forum for veterans and the community to connect. Here are your hosts, veterans John Gallina and Brad Borders.
Things are changing.
Things are changing. Hey, our thoughts and prayers for all our business owners in downtown Statesville. Our little community here has been affected by fire overnight. About 2 a.m., fire broke out and right on the corner of the square downtown, historic downtown Statesville. And Gigi's Frame Shop looks like it's a pretty bad loss, and other businesses affected down there. And so, man, we're thinking about those folks. Just a terrible way to start their day. But man, the firefighters from multiple different towns from around, all volunteer firefighters like Hickory and Moxville and all kinds of folks came to the rescue to stop it from being worse.
When it's nearly a 200-year-old building, it goes up quick.
Man, I tell you what,
all hands on deck.
Yeah,
but no pun intended, considering we got Navy in the house today.
I know, man, that's terrible. So, hey, welcome to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We are Purple Heart Homes, a 501c3. We're based out of Statesville. We solve housing solutions and provide housing solutions for disabled veterans all over the country. And we've got some cool stuff going on in Statesville today.
But before that, I got to just say what is really cool, and certainly you're right, my heart goes out to all those that are affected by the fire. Mm-hmm. But, man, how cool is it to get a front row seat to the live news broadcast?
I know, that was crazy. Yeah.
I mean,
Mike
the guy's
Jackson.
like, I can reach out and touch him. I adjusted the volume on his headset while he's giving the news.
Mike
right?
Jackson has a radio voice too. It's Mike Jackson, right?
And another cool thing we got going on is our friend Wilcox is in the Wells Fargo Championship as a celebrity putter.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they picked him as a celebrity, right? That's the big question. We've been having a Twitter war.
Yeah.
And I just keep hashtagging celebrity ? Right? And so, funny thing next week.
Now, wait a minute. That's not cool. If he wins, he's giving us $100,000.
He's not. He's just putting.
Well,
right.
But I mean, technically,
right.
if he sinks the putt, then we get $100,000. So I count that as he is my favorite celebrity.
He's been doing these training montage Twitter things where he superimposed, Adobe photoshopped his face on Arnold Schwarzenegger's body from Muscle and Fitness magazine from 1978, and I told him that it was better putting through chemistry. And then if he was here, he would say this: "How dare you?" Right?
So are you saying he's weak and he's not hitting the putt as hard as he needs to?
I'm just saying is the dude hasn't played golf in 3 years, right? Hasn't picked up a golf club in 3 years, and he's putting for us.
But there was a time that he played golf on the golf course over at Rocky River with Purple Heart Homes, where he was shooting the AR-15 golf ball launcher at his partner, Woody.
I know, and I don't think you can use an AR-15 golf ball launcher in a putting contest. That would do some damage.
But it's got an adjustable buttstock. Why not?
Yes, I mean, my gosh. So anyhow, the big thing is Monday. So with the likes of Greg Olson and Jonathan Stewart, a bunch of other celebrities, they're doing this putting challenge at the Wells Fargo Championship at Quail Hollow Country Club Monday. And Purple Heart Homes gets $500 just because Wilcox picked us. Thank you, Wilcox. And then he plays, and if he wins and beats all these other celebrities, then Purple Heart Homes could get $10,000. And then at the end of that, there's a 20-foot putt that if he sinks it's $100,000 for veterans, right? And so
20
that's
foot.
20, something like that. Maybe it's 20 yards. I don't know.
Oh, 20 yards. That's a big difference.
I don't know.
I thought you were in construction.
It's a long. I don't know.
Do you know
I didn't get.
I
didn't get the.
2000?
All I know is it's 20 something. They didn't. They said 20 feet, 20 yards. I don't know. 60 feet. I don't know. Long putt. Impossible shot. If he hits it, it's $100,000 for veterans, and so we're really excited about that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, very cool.
So let's switch over to our guest here, because an hour goes by fast when I'm picking on you. Yeah. But let's, one of the things I've noticed about these Stevenson fellas is they've got lots of nicknames.
Yes. Well, I mean, so our guest today is Scott Stevenson. He's a Navy veteran. He was a he was a diver.
A squid.
It was a long time ago. He had one of those Bell helmets like those big, brass
Brass
things. They
ones,
had
yeah.
that had to, like lock on, and they put weighted boots on him and sent him down to the bottom of the ocean, and he fixed and tore stuff apart. And but Scott's been a friend of ours for a long time, and we're really glad to have him here. And he goes by a lot of nicknames, Mr. Jingles, Johnny Quest. Silver Bullet, right?
Is Nemo one of those?
Nemo, right? We'll come up with some new ones today. But anyhow, welcome to the show, Scott Stevenson. Glad to have you here today.
Thank you very much.
Man, he's got a voice for radio as well, too. So awesome. And he brought his Rip It energy drink in, which is the official energy drink of the Global War on Terror. That is a trademark slogan, not to be repeated at any time without express permission of putting the pieces back together. All right,
there you go.
So, Scott, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today, and we're really glad to have you here. Tell us about how did your nickname Johnny Quest come about?
So I was an explosive ordnance disposal technician in the Navy, and my first duty station in Charleston, my LPO, or leading petty officer, he's the senior E6 on the team, he totally forgot my name. And I've been told, you need to come up with a better story than this, but this is the truthful story. And they were making me do everything, back the boat, gas the boat, trailer the boat, just so I would learn all of these skills you need to have. And he forgot my name. Just totally, you could see the cloud of emptiness above his head. And we were all in the truck after a day of diving, and he was like, all right. And he just kind of looked at me like, okay, Johnny Quest. And everybody started giggling and all that craziness. And it stuck. Right. And so that's where it came from.
So for those listening, Johnny Quest may not mean anything to anyone, but Johnny Quest was actually a cartoon back in the 60s and 70s of a kid who was an adventure kid, and he was on a team with like his dad or something.
Dad and Haji and
Haji and they
Rex
had
Banner.
Yeah, Rex Banner
who was a Navy guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and they would swim underwater and disarm things. And
my favorite was the helicopter. They flew on a helicopter.
They did fly on a helicopter. They just did everything.
They go after big robotic spiders. And
there's monsters and things like that. Yeah, the 60s and 70s cartoons. So that's awesome. You got another nickname, Mr. Jingles. I think I gave you Mr. Jingles a few years back. There was a TV interview done where one of the local folks, the stations down in Charlotte, wanted to interview a veteran about our withdrawal from Afghanistan, and you mentioned jingle trucks in the interview. And so as soon as you mentioned jingle trucks, I just started calling you Mr. Jingles. And not only that, you have like some Santa Claus bells.
They're reindeer bells.
Yeah, reindeer bells that you would walk around with, and you would jingle. So thus the name. So he goes by Scott Stevenson, Johnny Quest, Mr. Jingles, whatever you want to call him. So,
Squid.
Squid. Yeah.
So speaking of Squid, tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into the Navy, and what led you to explosive ordnance demolition diver.
Right. So I went to ASU for several years on and off, and I was thinking about the Navy, and I finally just took off with it. And went in '89, went to boot camp in Orlando. That's where at the time there were 3 boot camps, but that's where the girls went to boot camp.
Okay.
So we had a sister
this
company.
This is a first.
Yeah.
So we had a sister company, went to all the classes and all that kind of stuff. And then, and then proceeded on after boot camp to my A school, which was Gunner's Mate A school up in Chicago, up where the other boot camp's located. And from there, went to dive school down in Panama City Beach. And then at first, I was an EOD assistant. They had this program. You would go through half of EOD school, basically, in dive school, and go out and be an apprentice for 2 years and sign off your qualification standards, and then go to once you finish that, you'd go back and, if you wanted to, finish up the rest of EOD school, and that's what I did.
Okay. And so you became a diver, '89. This is getting close to the time of the Gulf War. You deployed to the Persian Gulf, and you guys actually did some stuff in the Persian Gulf.
Yeah, there were multiple multinational EOD teams there diving to find the mines that were laid to keep the shipping lanes open, basically.
Right.
And Our team, my team, Explosive Ordnance Disposal Mobile Unit 6 out of Charleston, Detachment 6. We had 6 guys on the team, so that's like 666, and then our truck number was number 13. So we had
you had all the bad numbers.
Well, we had all the luck on our side.
If you look at it from the opposite point of view.
Yeah,
right.
And our team cleared about 40 sea mines of different varieties. You had floating mines or moored mines, which became floating mines because the cable would break and they would float to the surface, and that's a rule in the Geneva Convention. You can't have that kind of thing. Bottom mines that were made by the Russians, by the Italians. The moored mines were made by the Iraqis, and it was a good design, but the skin, so on a moored mine, the upper half of it is an air void, so it will float in the water column.
So when you go down and like you're under the water, and it's like you have to have like a screwdriver or something with you, and like is there a little door, and then you open it up and there's like wires, right? And your buddy in the water's like, don't cut the blue wire.
Well, eventually, when we first started, we were diving buddies, but then we went to a single diver,
right?
That was had a witness float attached to him, so surface people could know where he was. You don't have to do that. You don't have to have a witness float because of the danger of moored mines. You don't want that getting wrapped up in another mine nearby, if there is such a thing. But they were pretty far apart. But yeah, we would take down a spanner wrench to take off a keep ring from the hydrostatic switch.
I've just always been curious. Do all the people all around the world that make bombs, do they all use the same kind of tools, or is it like Ford and Chevy where you got to have your own special tools for each special type?
It's different for each. It's different for each kind of mine, and depending on how you're doing it. And so, exactly, our intelligence was telling us that they weren't booby trapping these mines for anti-EOD defense kind of thing. So we were doing basically half a render safe procedure underwater, and then doing the rest once the wires were cut on that particular mine.
Gotcha.
Wow. So, Scott, there's just so much to unpack here. What an illustrious career, if such a thing can be said for anybody that served in the Navy. Of course, all those listeners out there know that I was Army, so I got a little bit of favoritism specifically for the 30th Brigade. Yeah. But, hey, we built the first ship for the Navy, so all's good.
Yeah, probably drove
Army has ships. The Army does have ships. Yeah.
So,
and divers.
We're going to be kind of migrating here to our break, and I want to just call out a couple of very quick things I think are really important for our listeners to keep them staying tuned. Scott actually worked with dolphins and trained and deployed dolphins in his time in the Navy, in addition to a number of other really great, phenomenal missions where he served in North Korea. He was on North Korea. Mm-hmm. He was on the funeral detail. If you wouldn't have fell asleep when you were reading his bio, then you would have known that.
North Korea.
North Korea.
I didn't know we were allowed in North Korea.
Yeah, they had a program. It's kind of on and off program depending on their mode. No, it wasn't clandestine. It was very in the open.
Yeah.
They want to keep watch over you, but I mean they're probably watching us now, so it's all right.
For sure.
There's a balloon somewhere.
Yeah, right.
So, in addition to that, you were on President Nixon's funeral detail,
right?
And just a whole lot of other really cool stuff. So, if you're listening and you want to hear some of the cool stuff that the Navy does, make sure that you tune back in here after the break. And don't forget, we got Devil Dog Devin, and he'll be sharing Project of the Week with us, and just going to be a great show today with all sorts of really, really neat, interesting, laughable moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we got about 30 seconds to break, and so Scott, I want you to be thinking about when we come back, maybe a funny story from your time in the Navy. Something that usually look back on was humorous, and Scott
preferably not while you were in an Army unit.
Yeah. And Scott not only deployed underwater, but also was an EOD tech on dry land in both Afghanistan and in Iraq, and so a lot of
would that
great
be like
experience.
A fish out of water?
That would be like a squid out of water. Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll be back here in 3 minutes, and so thanks for listening, putting the pieces back together.
Back with you live at WSIC Studios, putting the pieces back together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We have Mr. Navy himself, JQ, otherwise known as Johnny Quest.
If you're on Facebook, you can see Johnny Quest's picture on there when he starred in the show Johnny Quest back in 1968.
It looks a little bit like Scott with a beard, a few years older.
Except for the actual Johnny Quest is young and virile and can run really fast. So.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I can't run anymore.
So we have, up next, we got Devil Dog Devin, who's going to share the project of the week for us.
Well, good morning.
Well, hello. How
Or
are
good
you?
day, excuse me. Yes.
Brought you outside.
You're right. I was a little intimidated earlier when they were reading the news. Mikey, I think he might be as loud as I am. I don't know.
Well, that's the way they train you in radio. You're supposed to speak like you're speaking what, Isaiah? What's when you tell us?
Loud and bombastic?
Loud,
Loud
like you've seen an old friend at a party.
Yeah, you haven't seen each other in 20 years.
Yeah, hello, right?
Oh,
Just
well,
like you
this
do.
is my inside voice. I didn't know I was supposed to speak like I was
that's right.
seeing an old
You
friend
gotta
at the
stop
party.
encouraging him, please. The volume's down all the way on my headset already.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that project of the week.
do
What do you all
that.
think? This week we got a special veteran from Mississippi, and this guy, Mr. House, he was at Hamburger Hill. Y'all ever heard of Hamburger Hill?
I have.
Not a fun place to be. He was shot 3 times, Vietnam veteran, and they called it that, for those of you who don't know, because they were ground up like hamburger
There
meat.
was so many, a lot of casualties in that battle.
It was a terrible battle to be at, and so so many of our Vietnam vets got forgotten, and this is one of those tragic things that happened, and they came home and got spit on after getting mauled up by the enemy. Ugh, look, I can't even talk. It's got me choked up. That's But Mr. House out there in Mississippi, his roof, well, it's tin roof rusted like a B-52 say, and we normally go through a great partner of ours, Owens Corning, but because it's a tin roof, we couldn't do that, and so they were checking out some things, and we heard that Mr. House had passed away.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, but apparently rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated.
No kidding.
The tax office, for some reason, has him listed as being gone, but Mr. House is alive and
You
kicking.
talked to him on the phone. He's like, yeah, I'm good, man.
Wait a minute. Being shot 3 times on Hamburger Hill, and I don't know that anything can take him out.
Yeah, no
that's
kidding.
right, man. That dude's bulletproof.
Absolutely. So
That's like an Andy Griffith episode.
it is.
Like, we heard you was gone. You can't come back after you're gone. It just ain't decent.
You can't. Well, it was something like that, Brad. Well, Mr. House, though, he's going to get a new roof. We've partnered with Simplify for America Fun, and
That's great.
And Lamar's been taking care of him out there. And speaking of Mississippi, I don't know if y'all know this, but we have got a tiny home, and it's getting ready to hit the trail, boy. Yeah, it's going to go down from. Look at Brad's face. We're going to send it. We built this thing in our warehouse at Purple Heart Homes. If y'all have never seen this, we go to phhusa.org. Follow us on Facebook. You can see all the stuff we do with the tiny homes, and follow the trail of this tiny home going. It's going to start sometime in May, and we're going to go all the way down.
We're going to have a GPS locator on it, and so that you can track it.
My
like Santa Claus.
suggestion was that we put a couch inside of it and have Durant monitor the journey from in the tiny home.
No,
but,
that sounds like a job for Devin.
Yeah. I mean.
Awesome. That's going to be really cool. Yeah, and so that's the gentleman that lost his home in a tornado in Winona, Mississippi, and we're partnering with Scott Burns from 7 Days for the Troops out of Tupelo,
Absolutely.
Mississippi, and what a great thing to be able to do is come alongside somebody that's a long way away and provide a home in short order.
And
No
the really unique thing is, our hearts go out, and all across the country anytime a natural disaster happens, and we send mission groups from all over the country go out and support people, and they send food and clothes and all that sort of thing. But the way this is coming together here in Statesville and supporting the community there in Winona, Mississippi, is the mayor's getting involved,
That's
the
what I heard.
motorcycle groups are getting involved. We got groups along the way in Atlanta are getting involved, and the House is going to make multiple stops along the way, and people are meeting it at the state line in Mississippi, and then there's volunteers that are going to be there, and the day that it arrives, it's going to get set on the foundation, and 2 days later, he's going to be living in that house.
That is fantastic. Yeah,
Really
fantastic.
a great project, great story. I love seeing the community come together.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Devin. Appreciate it.
So,
Looking forward to seeing you on the Oregon Trail or on the Mississippi Trail.
I don't
be
think I've
great.
been invited.
I think that would have been the Trail of Tears.
Yeah, the Trail of Tears. That's right. That's right. So awesome.
Moving on to better topics. So, Scott, tell us a funny story about your time in service before I start crying.
So we had a command Christmas party at my command in San Diego, and everybody was there. And one team, they were going to go as the Three Amigos, and some guys on my team, they were like, "Let's do something like they're doing." And I was like, "Well, we could wear kilts, So I wore my kilt. We went and rented some kilts from this lady who made mine, and we showed up at the Christmas party.
Did y'all have those little bags that you wear around
yeah,
your
that's
waist?
called a sporn.
Yeah, sporn.
Yeah.
What a horrible name.
Yeah. So, but that's animal skin. Mine was made out of beaver skin, and
Wait, beaver skin?
yeah.
My
So-
sporn is made of beaver
Yeah.
skin.
And so we were walking around the different tables saying hi to everybody, and I think I made John cry. And we came back, and there was a comedian. He was like the guest comedian of the show, and he was picking on my LPO at the time, my leading petty officer, and we were kind of standing there, and we were sort of in front of the CO's table, so he couldn't really see what was going to happen. And I told him, I said, just follow my lead. And,
Oh, Lord.
And I gave him a finger count, 1, 2, 3, and we flashed.
Oh, you did in true Braveheart fashion.
Yeah.
Oh, my
We
goodness.
flashed the comedian. Nobody else could see it except for the comedian and whoever was behind him, which happened to be his agent.
Right.
And
The statute of limitations out on indecent exposure from 1990 something.
what was that?
So-
1999.
Okay, yeah, I think it's out. Okay, good.
So that shut the comedian down. He didn't know what to say. And but he came back and he said something like, "That's why. Well, I see now why white guys can't dance or jump or whatever it was." Because he was a black guy. He was a really funny guy and didn't think anything of it. But that was on a Friday. We came back into work on Monday. People were on leave. The CO, the XO were all on leave. And they're like, "You need to go see the ops officer," because he was in charge. And we're like, "Oh, my gosh." And that was our ops officer then was really kind of a short guy. Everybody thought it was funny when it happened. And he was like, "I got to discipline you guys." What you did.
But wait a minute. When he offered to discipline you, did you use the excuse that you learned it in your female basic training unit in Florida where you had sister units? I mean, that would have been a great excuse.
That's where I got
right?
my kilt. Yeah.
But no, but well, I won't go there. Anyway, we had to write an apology letter. Each one of us had to write an apology
handwritten,
letter.
I will
to him.
never-
And he wasn't asking for the comedian wasn't asking for this. It was his agent.
Oh.
Because we all thought she's seeing dollar signs like a tail hook
yeah.
kind of
Right, yeah.
thing going on.
Yeah.
And so we wrote them, but I told them if they could think about it, write it write a little bit of sarcasm in there that you can't really read into.
Right.
It would be difficult to read into.
Subliminal sarcasm.
Subliminal sarcasm. That's a good way to put it.
All right.
So that's what we did, and then we had to go see the command master chief, and he was like, "This takes away all your hoo-yah credit. Just because hoo-yah is like ooh-rah or hoo-ah or
Hoorah.
or hooty-hoo in the Air Force.
Right.
But
I thought the Air Force was 4.
Yeah.
Four.
Yeah.
How come my room's not clean, right?
Right.
So we had to do that, and after that, it was all good to go.
Yeah.
So Scott, what a great story. But in all seriousness, you've done some really cool stuff in your time in service, and so I want to talk about probably what, in my estimation, reading your retirement bio, was your time in an Army unit. And so tell us about your Army unit. And what was it like to be Navy surrounded by Army and going into North Korea?
So
did you feel safe?
Yeah, I felt pretty safe. That was a pretty neat experience. So North Korea and the United States have an agreement to, depending on their mood of the day and what the moon phase is, to go over to North Korea and with archaeologists and anthropologists to dig up remains from the Korean War and repatriate them. And that's what our job was. But it's head up by SEAL High, which back then was a separate organization. That was Central Identification Lab Hawaii, and that's an Army unit stationed in Hawaii. Great bunch of guys, civilians included. And we went over there to do that job. The Army guys were pretty awesome. We had a major who was promoted to lieutenant colonel while we were over there, and we had a sort of ceremony for that. And we had 2 teams that went over there. We were the first team of that year to go, so we had to ensure the base camps were set up. We camped out in tents, basically, not GP medians, but the old style kind of Boy Scout tent. And we had a big circus tent that was our kind of our chow hall, relaxation. And then on the weekends, we would go back to our hotel, which was an interesting place to be. And a lot of the North Koreans are very nice people. But there was one incident. We were walking through a village out to a place where we were digging, and we broke for lunch. We went back to our base camp for lunch, and we were waving at the kids in the fields, and they were, not flipping us off, but giving us the fist, which is basically the middle finger. Oh. And the North Korean officer in charge noticed that, and he went back out there and straightened them up. And so when we came back, because they started throwing rocks and stuff at us on our way out to lunch, and when we came back, they just turned their backs to us and gave us the fist kind of thing.
Like over the back.
Yeah. And we're like, wow, that's pretty wild.
How many sets of remains did you guys find?
So we found 5 sets of remains, and they have a big powwow between the North Korean anthropologists and our anthropologists, and to decide if they're Americans or if they're Koreans / Chinese, but they won't admit the Chinese ever helped them during the war. And so out of those 5, 3 sets were American, and there was one that we found dog tags to.
Wow.
And so once a week, this was like a 4-week deal, we could radio back to the United States. We couldn't take cell phones. You couldn't take any kind of GPS device, because they were thinking we're marking a spot to drop the bomb or something like that. So we had a SEAL radio man with us. He stayed in the hotel the whole time. He never came out to the base camp with us, except to set up his radio equipment and bounce a radio wave back to Hawaii. So we sent them that information off of the dog tag. And then that came back the next week saying he made it back. He just lost his dog tags. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So
no kidding.
You find things like Chinese made things, like, this is Chinese, what's up with that? And they're like, they didn't help us.
Right.
They didn't participate in any of this.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, and I had a metal detector that it was a civilian metal detector. It worked for about 30 minutes, and the rest of the day
it was made in China, though.
Probably was. And for the rest of that time we were out there on that objective, I was trying to figure out what was wrong with it. Are the batteries crummy? Is there erosion inside? And I had 2 Korean officers over my back looking at me digging into this thing. So it's just a really interesting trip. We had 24/7 guards on us at the base camp and at the hotel. You couldn't venture too far away from either place.
Right.
There was one major who was American educated and super nice guy. He spoke great English, and he was, if anybody was to defect, because they talked to this guy in past experiences, it would have been him.
Oh, yeah.
But he couldn't because they'd kill his family.
Yeah, sure.
So,
So,
wow.
Scott, when we come back from the break, I'd like to kind of move into the work that you're doing now and just how, I can't help but imagine the time there in North Korea and the work that might have informed you to kind of what you're doing now and restoring 100-year-old plus headstones. And so really cool work and something that, is really important for communities really all across the country that, we have these markers to remember our past and, sometimes they get vandalized, they get damaged or, weathered and just from age, but there's very specific ways that you have to care for them and restore them. And so I think it's really cool work that you're doing now and just the tedious nature of being an EOD tech and the work and finding remains. And so we just really appreciate you. Look forward to hearing more about
Yeah,
that.
it's going to
Thanks,
be
sure.
really good.
Yeah, thank you.
We're really grateful, and what Scott's doing now is a great. It's contributing so much to our community and the history of where we live, and we're going to hear more about that. So we'll be back in 3 minutes, and thanks for joining us on Putting the Pieces Back Together.
Welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We are pleased to have in studio with us today Scott Stevensen, Navy diver, EOD tech, all-around man extraordinaire, nicknamed JQ, otherwise known as Johnny Quest.
Mr. Jingles.
Always on some type of highly classified special mission to save the world.
Squidward. He's been telling us about his time in service and some interesting missions that he had diving and some that involved a kilt. And then another one where he worked recovering remains from the Korean War in North Korea. So really interesting. So Scott, tell us a little bit. You retired in 2010. What the heck was transition like? For
Well, I
you?
want to know what Victories was like too.
What?
Victories was like. Victories.
Oh.
That's part of the question. It's not
Oh,
just
yeah.
what was transition like. What was Victories?
Oh, yeah. Well, nobody else can see that. So,
Well,
so
I know, and so you like to pick on me about words and spelling, so I'm making sure to draw out for all the listening audience that they know that Brad wrote one of those Southern twang words,
victories.
victories.
Yeah.
Victories.
law.
It's like going down the dirt road.
Yeah, don't try this at home. We are, and we shouldn't try this at home because this
Brett,
should
don't
belong
you-
to broadcast professionals.
Don't you know I've been planning that for like the last
I'm
12
sure
hours?
you have. I'm sure you have. You've been sitting at home thinking of some funny way to pick on my my omission of an O. So
How was that spelled?
Yeah.
Victories.
Victories. Yeah, that's exactly how you spell it. It's
That's right.
phonetic.
That's
So,
right.
hey, so tell us about, you got out in 2010. What was transition like for you? Victories and challenges.
It was good. I got out in 2010, and I had a townhouse down in Panama City Beach. That was my last duty station at the experimental diving unit, and that's where that Silver Bullet nickname sort of comes from. But I won't.
Yeah, don't elaborate.
I won't go into that.
Yeah.
So came up here, stayed at my dad's for a little bit, got into Fourth Creek Burying Ground, did a lot of research there, and that was a side note. And then I was like, well, I've been out for about 5 months. I really need to start searching for a job. So I put a resume together. I knew who I wanted to go work for. That was called AT Solutions. They were an EOD created business, Fortune 500 they got to be in, and what they did was they provided contractors basically to be consultants for all the military, and we were consultants based out of Fort Leavenworth for brigade, battalion, and I don't know what the size.
Army stuff,
basically, yeah. So that went pretty well. We had that gig for about 3 years, and then we lost that gig, and we all lost our jobs. And so I moved back down to Panama City Beach. I picked my mother up from Lenore. She was staying at Brookdale Assisted Living, and took care of her down there. And then she had passed away, and I moved back up here. Picked up a job with a high school friend of mine. I was his warehouse supervisor for a little bit. Left there and came to Purple Heart Homes shortly afterwards. Worked there for 3 years. Well, almost 2 years, sorry. And then decided that I wanted to do more with this cemetery stuff and learn how to clean properly old headstones, learn how to repair properly old headstones, and restore them back to standing in most cases. Sometimes you just can't do that. I just had a few markers up in Mount Airy at a cemetery up there where the Siamese twins happen to be buried, and they're
yeah. So there's going to people that don't have any idea what you're
Right.
talking about. The Siamese twins, right? And so you don't hear a lot about Siamese twins anymore, but there was a famous set of Siamese
Yeah.
twins that were from lived in Mount Airy, and so tell us a little bit about them, and that's just really a unique story. This was in the 1800s,
right.
correct?
So these guys, I think, were born in 1814, passed away about 1874, and they were from the country of Siam, which is now Thailand, and that's where the term Siamese cat, Siamese twins, Siamese
Everything.
floats,
Yeah.
And they were connected. They were fully capable men, full body. They were just connected at the chest with about an 8-inch piece of flesh and cartilage and veins and arteries that connected them. I think from what I've read about them, only one of them had a liver. And
They shared a liver.
When they,
Right.
in their old age, I think a couple of their children started taking care of them. They had to sleep together. They had to
It's
do
really
everything
interesting.
together.
They were both married.
They were both married
and
to
both
sisters.
Married to sisters, and they both had children.
They both had
right.
together. They had 21 children.
Just say 21
Yes, the
21
logistics
Now,
of
I
this.
knew
This
about
is amazing.
these guys, but I didn't know they had 21 kids.
21 kids.
And
Wow.
They would spend. Scott was telling me this last night. Is they would each spend. They would stay at one house with one of the sister wives for 4 days, and then they would go and stay at the other sister house for 4 days, and they would alternate back and forth.
Yeah.
And they had 21 combined children, right? And
Yeah.
it's just incredible, right? So how did you find out about? You went up to Mount Airy and restored some gravestones with their family with the Siamese twins. Did you restore their stones?
No,
as well?
their stone's in great shape. It's a pretty large stone, and it just needs some cleaning. But through a mutual friend who happens to be a little bit related to them, but the person who contracted me to come up there and clean and repair, they're way more related. And the markers I restored were one of their grandsons, one of the Siamese twins' grandsons, who only lived to be about 5 months old, and then 2 of his daughters, who died young in their 20s from tuberculosis. And one of them, the last one I worked on, it's interesting. They're both marble markers. They're tablet-style headstones with a base that they sit in. And the one was broken in 3 pieces. So you had a base stone with a piece of the tablet in it. Then you had a middle section. Then you had a top portion of the headstone. The middle section sat out in the sun, and I just learned this while I was up there. I was like, how can a stone bend? But it sat on the ground on the surface, exposed to the sun for however many years it was broken, and it cupped.
Yeah, it warped.
It in
Yeah.
2 planes.
That's
and
crazy.
And so it sort of stands like that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But it was an interesting project. There's some more up there they want me to work on, and I'm happy to do
Yeah, and
that.
so you've been for those that don't know, we have Fourth Creek Burying Ground here in Statesville. It's I'm guessing it's the oldest,
Probably the oldest
cemetery in town. It's right next to our First Presbyterian Church, which was one of the first churches in town back in the 1700s, and so you've written or categorized who's buried there.
Mm-hmm.
You've been cleaning grave markers there for a number of years now and restoring a lot of those back there. My wife has relatives that are buried there. What was it that got you interested in that?
I think the family connection.
Mm-hmm.
So my first ancestor's buried there, and his name's William Stevenson. Got the another nickname, Little Gabriel. And,
Right. Yeah.
And throughout that cemetery, there's people that we married into: the Watts, the Allisons, the
Grays.
Sloans.
Yeah.
Who's that?
The Grays.
Yeah.
Yep,
I
that's.
don't know if there's any Grays up there.
I don't know if there's any buried there, but it was the Halls. There was Reverend Hall,
Right.
that that started that church and that cemetery, and little known connection there is Little Gabriel's my 5th great grandfather.
Mine too. Yep.
And so,
So we're connected.
so we
Just
we
not
go
at
way
the chest.
back. It gives me right to pick on the squid.
Yeah. And so you started a business. What's the name of your business?
It's called Fourth Creek Historic Gravestones.
All right, and so if people have, there are a number of old burial grounds all around our county and in the surrounding counties, and if you're interested and you've got a family member, a distant family member that's buried in one of those that are no longer being used, they're kind of, some of them are kind of tucked away in the woods, and you stumble across them. Maybe you're out deer hunting or turkey hunting, and you might find one. But if you're interested, you can contact Scott, and if you got a stone that's in disrepair, Scott can clean that for
Sure
you
can,
and,
sure
and
can.
bring it back up
A
to
couple of
speed.
interesting facts there I think are really cool. Number one, there's folks that have contacted you to help find relatives that are buried in Iredell County.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's another thing that you're kind of doing, is you're helping people be able to connect to where their ancestors may be buried, because you've cataloged a lot of these cemeteries. Number two is that you don't do this work all alone, that you actually have volunteers that have come out and helped you and doing some cleaning and some repair and some general maintenance to a lot of these unkept cemeteries. And so you want to talk a little bit about that and how people might get involved to be a part?
Sure. So about once a month, we have been in the past up at Fourth Creek Burying Ground cleaning markers up there. Devin came up one time. I've got a photograph. I'll try to find it of him cleaning. He looked surprised, like he got caught doing something.
He was.
Devin always looks surprised.
But we do, and I can give you a short course on how to properly clean. Repairing is a little bit more involved, because you've got to have the right epoxies. Cleaning is important to use the right products as well, because you don't want to use bleach. Bleach has salt in it, and salt will start to eat away on the stone. You may not notice it during your lifetime, but it will eat away at the stone.
Yeah.
And so there's a product, I don't know, can I give
Yeah, sure.
kudos to that? It's called D2 Biological Solution. That's been the thing that the bigger pros use, and they advertise that they clean the White House with that as well.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a really good product. It's not instantaneous. When you apply it, it takes days to weeks to sometimes months. Some of these up in Mount Airy, they're going to take a month for that algae and mold and gunk to disappear, basically. That's not a good word to use, but the natural color of the stone will come out, and it will kill that stuff down deep. That's deeply rooted in the stone. Stone is porous, so these things creep down inside.
So Scott, we're closing in on the end of the show. We got about 4 minutes left, and there's so many different questions, so much to unpack here. Just kind of talk to us a little bit about the balancing of the historical accuracy of a grave marker with ensuring its structural integrity for the future. How do you help make sure these markers are going to be around?
Keeping them clean.
Yeah.
So that's really
keeping
important,
vandalism out of the cemeteries, keeping trees trimmed and out of their way, because trees get old and they break and they can damage a marker too.
And how about a memorable experience for you, and kind of when did you get hooked to doing this?
I think I got hooked in 2018. There was a class given by Jason Church, who works for the National Park Service, and he falls under a smaller umbrella of the National Park Service called the National Center for Preservation, Training, and Techniques, or something like NCPTT. I don't think I'm getting that said right, but and I talked to him yesterday. I Googled or texted him yesterday about something, but I took a class on basic cleaning and basic repair, small tablet repair down in Mooresville, and then another guy who's pretty famous in this avenue of work is Jonathan Appel, and he's out of Connecticut, and he was down at the same cemetery last year in Mooresville, and gave a class on cleaning. Jonathan's kind of famous for restoring a large large ledger headstone, which is like the size of a door. I think it was up in Williamsburg. They think this guy was a Knights Templar. His grave was underneath a church foundation, and they were doing archaeology work, and they called him in to repair it.
Well, and it's so important preserving history. And we have another cemetery here in town called Green Street Cemetery. It's down in the south part of town.
It's now been added to the National Registry.
Yeah, and it should be, because it hasn't been around as long as some of the other ones, but they date it back to 1885. But the problem is that it was almost exclusively African Americans buried there, and from 1885 to 1920 there were no death certificates. And our library got a grant, and they brought ground penetrating radar, and they've done that at Fourth Creek Burying Grounds as well, and they have found literally I think 1,600 grave shafts, and then part of the area there has yet to be scanned. But if you go by that graveyard,
and
there's only,
just to clarify, these are graves without any marker.
They have no marker. There's probably only 100 gravestones that are left up there, and many of them have fallen over and been broken over the years. And so Scott's been working with Todd Scott, the president of the NAACP here, to help restore some of those stones up there. I got a guy I went to high school with. His great-great-grandfather is buried there, who was a slave that had been freed, and then was buried in that cemetery. And so when they went out, they put all these pink markers, and there were thousands of them. It was just mind-boggling.
So we got 1 minute left. Scott, how can people contact you to get involved and support the work that you're doing and get you to their cemeteries?
They can call me at my phone number or email me at whiskeyquest, which is spelled with a WHISKEYQUEST at msn.com. And my phone number is 828-493-3121. And if you want to get involved with the Green Street, I would say get in touch with Joel Reese at the Iredell County Public Library.
That sounds like a great victory. We appreciate you being on the show for us today. Chap, I love you. It's always a great laugh in here. And you have been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. Get involved. Make your community better.
You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together with John Gallina and Brad Borders. Join us again next Tuesday at 8 a.m. and Saturday at 5 p.m. for Putting the Pieces Back Together on News Talk WSIC.